What's going on YouTube? I'm back with another video. Haven't uploaded on this account in a long time, but I just haven't really been able to upload videos on this channel really. Up until now, now that I got a topic to talk about, and I continue, and it gives me a reason to continue my Pokemon Generation series. Started back in the summer, so I'm gonna talk about Generation 4. My experience with the generation, and just kind of kind of a response to Tamashi Hokara's video. For those who don't know who Tamashi is, he's a big YouTuber with like well over a million subs. She's been on YouTube since '06, so she's been on YouTube since the early days of YouTube. And she did a video yesterday on Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. And one of the things he said that really stood out to me was the fact that Diamond and Pearl was the generation that started. That's when Pokemon really started to cater towards the younger generation, like kids who are the high school, the kids who are in high school right now, were the ones who started playing Pokemon during Generation 4. And I kind of really about it because I got into Pokemon, you know, I got into Pokemon like in that in between phases. I didn't start Gen 1 against Pokemon when it was still its peak. Got into Pokemon like 2001, 2002. So like, right when Pokemon was starting to decline, so to speak, but it was still popular enough to where kids, on school year I was playing Pokemon cards. You see kids bringing in games to school and whatnot. I saw kids, well, oh, Pokemon Yu-Gi, these Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh debates. When I was in grade school. So I consider myself part of that old school, but I'm still young enough, I could still appreciate the newer stuff that came out after, because I feel like Gen 2 was generation that catered towards kids, but Gen 3, but kids again who are younger than I am, kids who like 1999 or 2000, 2002, those kids, who we consider Generation Z, they're the ones who experience Pokemon. They experience Pokemon, purely from, purely, from a Gen 4 first. They didn't remember, like, they didn't remember May and Max. They don't remember, Misty, being anime when their episodes were, like, new. Like, they may have watched the old episodes, but they didn't, like, they, want, they didn't watch it and it was like, new. They didn't watch it, they watched it on Cartoon Network. So, like, it's different for them than it was for me, because for me, I watched Pokemon Kids WB. I the old games. I had my cousin was very into Pokemon during during back in the day. Um, I'm stumbling with words, but my cousin was very into Pokemon during the first generation, the first three generations. He was very into Pokemon. He had when he bought first he played. I remember when the first time he played. When the first time I saw Sapphire. Wow, that's so dope. And just how different it was from anything prior. Ruby and Sapphire came out. That's when Pokemon really was starting to go through this period of stage. It's teenage years, because Pokemon, the first generation of Pokemon fans, they already left, they already moved on. They was like, and this is too kiddie, bored. So generation Pokemon started to reinvent itself and trying to change the formula a bit. But then Generation 3, I remember as being the first two generations, like the cycle. It took away the transferability where you could transfer old Pokemon to new games. It took away that. So if you had a Game Boy Color and if you still had Gold and Silver, for example, Ruby and Sapphire, you couldn't transfer over. So you had to Pokemon in Generation 3. And then of course this was the generation that you know in the series. So Red Blue, well, at least until like you couldn't Fire Red came. So like you couldn't get no, basically it was basically a fresh start you know. But then when Generation 4 came, started to bring back, it was a Generation 4 combination of everything that came out before it. Because Generation 4, you got they brought back transfer, the Pokemon transfer, where you could play like Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. They had, they brought back contest battles because how big it was in Generation 3. Though battles, was still around. The Battle Frontier came back, so a lot of games from Generation 3 carried it on to Generation 4. But there are some new features as well, as she mentioned. Generation 4 introduced the physical special split, which changed the way we play Pokemon. So now it's become more competitively. Came at the time. So before, if you want to Pokemon competitively, you either had to go online, for anybody use the internet for Pokemon, back then, and then or you had to go to like a tournament, in your home, and like most kids live in big events 9 times out of 10. So like the DS era really brought people together. Events that still today, that was never before. The DS era definitely Pokemon is competitive battling and know for casual Pokemon fans, those up with original generations. So like, see what she was kind of weird that she mentioned that it was Generation 4, Generation 3. First Generation 3 was a generation that took away a lot of things that we loved about Generation 1 and 2. But then I kind of thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, when Generation 4 came out, a lot of, like, at least Generation 3 still had it was still on the Game Boy Advance, so like, so you could still play, red, blue, yellow, crystal, and all that stuff. For Generation 4, you're only gonna play Ruby and Sapphire, Brood, and Leaf Green, Fire Red. That's your backup and stuff like that. So 4 experience was a new start for the series, and then it was when Pokemon moved to Cartoon Network. It was the first generation to completely on Cartoon Network, whereas it started off up on Cartoon Network, ended up on Cartoon Network doing the Battle Frontier saga. Yeah, there were a lot of changes in Generation 4, I must say, but I really enjoyed this generation. I really enjoyed that generation because, I was still a kid at the time. I was in 5th grade when I was still young enough to enjoy it, but I was old enough to have lived through generations. So I'm like in that in between stage. I'm still kind of considered an old head in Pokemon because I was old enough to remember. I was old enough to experience its golden age back in the early 2000s. I was over those days where where kids would bring the game colors to school. Kids will Pokemon cards. But when I tell kids, these days, these younger kids who in high school or middle school about big Pokemon was back in the early 2000s, late 90s, they be like, they be kind of surprised, because to some people it's much still, but like when I was like, again, me being born in the mid 90s, I remember, like I'm old enough to I'm like the last person, like if you was born like nice and tasty, I was like the last, we're the last wave of kids to have actually lived throughout the Pokemon um series, like to being alive in every generation that came out. Whereas kids these days, they were born like in 2005, 2004. So by the time they was born, Pokemon was really in the steady decline, in a steady decline. But so like with me, I could look up Pokemon on the perspective as well as more on a large perspective as Pokemon Diamond and Pearl was the first Pokemon game, official Pokemon game that wasn't, that wasn't a spinoff because growing up I never really played a Pokemon game on my own. Like I always had to play with my cousin on Game Boy whenever he let me, and sometimes how we Pokemon fans can be. We could be very stingy with with our games, and but he did let me experience Pokemon for myself, and then with Pokemon you don't have another save file, so like if you play your own Pokemon, so like if he did let me play my own, let me play a Pokemon game, I would have to start over again, which would suck for him. So like I never got to experience Pokemon from you know, so I never got to play the older games from my own experience. So like my first personal experience with Pokemon, and it was pretty dope at the time. It was pretty dope. I'm glad that I got to experience it from a from a nostalgia perspective. I got to experience it from a new perspective. I was it was just a sign of me growing. I was already digits by that time. So like I was still a kid, but no longer like a baby. Like I get to have my own Pokemon experience now, something that I never had before. The closest thing I had for my Pokemon, my own Pokemon experience was Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon X on the GameCube. But like those were spin-off games. Those were games you play on a console, not in a handheld. So Diamond and Pearl was really a fresh start for me as well, and also a lot was coming on in my life back in '07. That was when I moved to North Carolina. That's from New York. That's I, that's when I graduated elementary school in New York. Cause New York we have like 5 graduations in New York. You have pre-K, kindergarten, fifth grade, eighth grade, and high school. So like it's like Pokemon Diamond and Pearl was just a sign of me. Going from child. It was a transition period from childhood to adolescence for me, and it was a pretty fun time. I didn't get platinum, so I don't know how that game went about. But when I first played Diamond and Pearl, it was pretty cool. But I noticed there were some problems with Diamond and Pearl. I mean, even then I know it was some problems with Diamond and Pearl. When I played it, I mean, but fortunately, when I played as a preteen, as a kid, because again, I played the older games, so like I remember, remember what Pokemon was like before Diamond and Pearl. First problem was you couldn't get no fire types in the game, and that I could say that was probably the biggest problem for me. It wasn't really a big deal for me because I started off with Chimchar, my first playthrough with Diamond, but then when I got it again in '08, when my cousin when I was playing with my cousin with I think we started off with Pimplop, and I started off with Turtwig, and and like we was trying to find a fire type. The only fire types we saw in the wild was Ponyta, and we was like, what? We only could find Ponytas in the wild. So like, thankfully, when he got platinum, that issue changed, and so now Magmar, Hound, stuff like that. So that was the first major change. That was the first problem down the Pearl was that you couldn't find any decent fire types in the wild. Another thing about Diamond Pearl was I kind of noticed, when I first played it um was the fact you couldn't get all the evolutions, the new evolutions that came out during it first got announced. And I saw Electivire for the first time. Gary, had Electivire. Whoa, that's so cool. I'm like, and then when I got Pokemon Diamond a couple months later, I was looking for Electivire. I was like, wait a minute, why can't I find Electivire? And then I found out, oh, you gotta wait till the end of the game. You gotta wait till the post game to get Electivire. And that was Electivire, but a, a whole host of stars like Licky Licky and um, Magnezone and Mac Mortar. You had to wait till the post to get those starters. Whereas Platinum, you get those starters like before you even beat the game. That was another problem right there. I mean, it was kind of cool. It made the game interesting, but it still was kind of like, why Pokemon? Why? And the third thing that I kind of noticed playing through Pokemon Down to Pearl as a kid was um, was a slow speed, which me too much because again it was my first real experience with Pokemon. Like first Pokemon game I played, first Pokemon game I played on my own, where I asked my cousin or my brother to play it. But like I mean looking back at it, I could say it was pretty slow, but it didn't really bother me too much because again I still enjoy the games, but um. But playing like the Gen 3 games, I was like, game went about so fast. But then playing Gen 4, I was like, wow, this is kind of slow. And then the story, then the story is pretty long because Sinnoh's pretty big regions. And then she mentioned how going from the sixth gen to seventh like a tedious journey. And I was like, yeah, that's one thing I really need again. And I played Diamond and Pearl like 3 times, so like I can so even though I haven't played see the because I played to where I can remember, you know, I can remember those little details, like going to like I think section was in Hardstone City and the 7th gen was on Snow Point City. You had to go path through Ornette, which took up most of the region, and it was a journey and like it was pretty long, but she kind of praised by the because X and Y and Sun and Moon. Like Diamond and Pearl, when I first played Diamond and Pearl, I remember it took me a whole month to beat that game. Like I got the game in like May, and I didn't beat it until like around June of '07. So it took me like a whole month to beat Diamond and Pearl, and like because again I was 11 years old. It's my first Pokemon game, but and in fact that Pokemon League was like very challenging, which is I'll get into a little later. But like that was definitely a fun. It was definitely a good experience for me as a kid. I definitely enjoyed it. I mean, back at it, the game, the was, because it was on the original DS, and it came, when DS was still, the DS was already popular, but like it was still kind of this growing pains as it just came out at the time, and the Pokemon, the last Pokemon game on the DS was my, I think was in the Mystery Dungeon, the first Mystery Dungeon games, Blue Rescue Team, I believe, and Ranger. So like all those games were in 2D sprites, whereas Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, it was in 2D, but it had 3D, rendering. So like it was a big step up from what they did prior. So I still enjoy the games. I probably will still enjoy them today, but yeah, but the pros you said about the game was challenging, and and I could say for the games, I could say compared to the games nowadays, I could say it's pretty challenging. But I say it's not as challenging Ruby. But I still say Ruby and Sapphire is the most challenging generation for me, at least because, um, I mean Ruby. I mean Gen 4 has some hard gyms. I mean there was like, I mean on Gen 4 didn't really have no gym. Gave me a hard time. Because I split through the whole. I went through the whole gym. Like I basically, yeah, I mean, the gym leads wasn't too hard for me, because again, when I first played Diamond, I had Infinite, I had Chinchar, and Chinchar helped me get through all the gym leaders. So like, I was pretty, good with the games early on. I know I started off with Chinchar, and I just moved on up from there. So like, the gym leads didn't give me a hard time, from what I remember, but it was Elite Four that kind of gave me a challenge because because again being my first Pokemon game against Elite Four, I was getting all these stats conditions. I remember Flint's Lopunny was kind of a challenge, because again with Down you only had 2 fire types, so Flint, who was supposed to be the fire Elite Four, he only had 2 fire types, and the rest of like different types. And Lopunny, just kept using Charm and Charm and Charm, which got on my nerves. And I kept using close combat, thinking I was gonna kill it, but he still was alive and kept using Hyper Potions. I was like, dang, get my freaking nerve. So like that was a challenge there, and that was also kind of a con as well. Going back to the whole, you only find there are only 2 fire types in the main game. Um, and Cynthia, Cynthia was definitely, a challenge. this was during when spirits didn't have no weakness at all. So like, I was like, what is this weakness of ghost and dark type? And I thought, I was like, oh, psychic should kill it. Then I was like, dang, I thought, ghost would kill it, but it's a part dark type. So you had to use like the strongest moves you had in order to kill it. So like, yeah, that was pretty difficult. And then Garchomp, which is, oh my goodness, like I was like, when I saw it was on level 66, I was like, Jesus, But thankfully, I was able to kill it. Me and my brother was trading out each other Pokemon, you know. And then I used to got my Chinchar, I got Torterra, which helped me beat Cynthia. And, my Staraptor didn't work. I still remember that when I beat her Garchomp, I was like, yes, Staraptor, Brave Bird, critical hit, done for. I still remember that moment. I was so happy. Oh my God, that made my day. So yeah, I still remember being Cynthia for the first time, just feeling overjoyed that I finally beat the Pokemon League by myself. Like I felt like a boss. Like bruh, like you couldn't tell me nothing. So like yeah, that was pretty awesome right there. Um, my overall experience in Gen 4 was pretty cool. As far as the lag game series, I didn't get platinum, but I did play Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which were, also great games as well. Also the only game she actually enjoyed to she did on YouTube. But as far as the post game Diamond Pearl goes, it was definitely it probably wasn't as good as Platinum was, because Platinum was the premium version of Generation 4, but Generation 4 the Diamond Pearl's Pearl post game was pretty fun, because you get to go to like the island in Sinnoh, go to like, Stark Mountain, all those towns like that, Battle Frontier. The Battle Frontier was actually a town, just being a slow section of a town sort of type of deal. Pretty fun catching Garatina and Heat Ran on level 70, catching Cresselia. Like it was a lot of legendaries to catch. I think that was the fun part of Generation 4 post game was the legendaries. The only legendary I didn't catch during that time was, Regigigas, because Regigigas, you had to get all three Reggies from, Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald, and that was pretty, difficult, and then at the time I didn't have Ruby and Sapphire, so like I couldn't get them, but like it was cool being able to, catch, Garatina and catch Ran. Like Garatina was just like a tough cookie, like yo, yeah. Thankfully in Platinum, he leveled down, but like he was a tough cookie catching them, the first time. So, I know I said a lot, but like Generation 4 was a fun generation. I definitely applaud Smashi for, looking at it from an objective point of view. I mean, she did critique the heck out of the game. Like, it took her 50 minutes to get to the good part, which was kind of like my biggest problem I have with the video. The fact that I had to skip through the entire video just for her to say good things about Diamond Pearl. But, I'm glad to see that she appreciates the series more as, time progresses. But I never hate on Gen 4, be honest, because Generation 4 was a generation that got me, real, that, it was my first time getting into Pokemon on my own without my cousins' permission. I get the on my own DS, my own handheld, I could have my own experiences. I can remember, play the game and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely a great review. And next review, Generation 5. That's it. This is Queen's Kid signing out.